Oh, you're a
All right,
vlogger.
guys. You guys are tuned in to another episode of Adventures with a Fan, and today we have a vet-to-vet interview with Joe. Joe, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Joseph Blassetti. I reside right now here in Bangkok, Thailand. A little bit about myself: I was in the Navy for over 20 years. I federal contracted all over the world for another 5, and now I'm residing here in Bangkok, Thailand. And I currently volunteer at the VFW, Veterans of Foreign War, here in Bangkok and Pattaya.
Okay, and where are you from?
From Cape Coral, Florida.
How was your upbringing out there?
Well, it was pretty good. I can't complain. My parents were born in Yonkers, New York. I was actually born in Yonkers, but they decided to move to Florida, like most New Yorkers do, because they thought it'd be cheaper, better opportunities, and we went down there. And where Cape Coral is located. Is 2 hours south of Tampa, over near Fort Myers Beach, about a half hour from Fort Myers Beach.
Okay. And when did you first take interest in the military?
Well, my parents were both middle class. They weren't poor, but weren't rich. So I figured, well, I'm going to go to college or do something. And I want to travel. I thought the military would be one of the best ways to do that, including serve. I figured I'd do 4 years and then get out, or at least get my college money and travel a little bit. So, and my family all served. I'm mostly Army though. So I was like the first one to break the cycle and join the Navy. Excuse me.
Okay, and when did you enlist?
When did I enlist? 1988. July.
What was your MOS?
I was aviation ordnance.
So what is that exactly?
Basically loading bombs on planes, and then as I got older, I messed up my knee, and I had to switch over to aviation administrator. And so I had to switch, but that was a blessing in disguise, because that ended up actually in the long run actually helped me, because I got to work behind what you call maintenance control, and I got to manage maintenance as I went up in rank, supervise, and I was also what you call in the Navy, when you first go in the Navy, called a plane captain, and in the Air Force you call it a crew chief. In the Navy it doesn't get a rating. So I launched airplanes, recovered them, and then I also did a little bit of security on the side.
Okay, and where did you serve?
Served in Miramar. It used to be, now it's Marine Corps Air Station. Our first 7 years, NAS Miramar. And while I was there, I was in the Fighter Squadron 2, made deployments to made two Westpacks. I've also was attached to VS-30, airborne squadron. We deployed in the Med twice.
I like your idea.
Also did an operation in Iraq a few times. Did some basic security, and I also, when I got out, I contracted in Iraq.
For which company?
L3 Communication and DynCorp International.
Were you doing the same job or a different job?
I was actually doing a production control, just managing the aircraft. It was a contract with the Army and the State Department. So they do things a little different. They'd have these books. You would manage them, and you would track maintenance being done, and you would track maintenance being done in the aircraft, oversee it, and then make sure the information is plugged in the computer properly.
Okay, so you work on the management side of that, or did you actually have hands-on with how that got done?
Well, actually, I also worked I was a flight line manager at Top Gun. So I did both hands-on and and behind the desk. Did both.
What units did you serve in?
Well, mostly squadrons. VF Fighter Squadron 2. Now they're known VS 30 fighters. Not a fighter squadron, but an anti-airborne, seaborne. His name is Airborne Squadron. Not airborne, but they track submarines. And it's been so long now. I'm getting older. I can't remember the exact terminology anymore. I served and also did some little bit did security. Toward doing security. So when I came in at the time, there was no MAA rating, no police rating. Yet in the Navy, it wasn't like the Army or the Marines or the Air Force. Usually sometimes you had to request the school and go to it, and they would enable you to get the certification. They had now the Navy has a rating for it. They have a rating.
So, what do you mean by a rating? What is a rating?
Rating is a job they assign you. You call it what you would call in the Army MOS. Navy calls it a rating.
Oh, okay.
So the Navy, it's called rate. Rate. You make rate, or you rate your job, and like in the Army, you call it MOS.
Okay. So, how did you like your job during service? Did you enjoy it, or?
I think overall, yeah. I mean, look, it helped me get to Thailand. Yeah, I mean, looking back, for the most part, it's good. It wasn't always easy. I always say, in the military, you get paid to put up a bull crap. The military itself isn't hard. And there's a birthday party in the background. That's what they're hearing.
Job, and that's what got you here to Thailand.
Yeah.
So what made you want to come out to Thailand?
Well, the first time I came to Thailand was right after we were coming back from the first Gulf War. So, and it was my first deployment, so I didn't know, it was a Westpac. So, how a Westpac normally works, you go to the Philippines, you'll go to Singapore, you'll go to, sometimes you go to Abu Dhabi or Dubai, depending. So everyone's like, we're going to Pattaya. I'm like, well, what's that? And then all the older veterans are like, you'll see. He goes, they're like, trust me, bro, you're gonna love it. You're not even gonna want to leave. So we go to Pattaya Beach. And at the time, we didn't pull pier side. They didn't have you take a Liberty, what you call a Liberty launch in.
Okay.
And they were right. Put it this way, they were right. It's like I couldn't believe what I was seeing the first time.
And what year was that? Like, what year did you?
That was April 1991, man.
Wow, long time ago.
Long.
So how was it different from now versus then?
Well, obviously it wasn't as built up, but it was still crazy and wild. It was still the people. Back then, obviously, there's no cell phones, there's no internet. So back then, and the people were always very nice. They were always smiling. Obviously, here, the land of smiles. Everything was very cheap. And even back then, I remember like Americans and like some Aussies living there. I'm like, and to me, young guy, like 20 years old, that was foreign. I was like, these Americans that live over here and they're like, yeah. And I'm like, how is it? They're like, we love it. I'm like, I understand why. And I thought to myself, I'm definitely coming back to this place. I didn't think I was going to live here at the time, but.
So when did you come back to live in Thailand?
2014, August 2014. I had a job. I was working in a place called Fallon, Nevada, in a little military. That's where Top Gun moved to, by the way. And they were where the pilots would train and do their bombing missions. I was the flight line manager there. So what happens was the company was going to lose the contract. And for those who do contracting, excuse me, you'll never know. Sometimes the managers get fired. Good. Good. Sometimes the managers get fired. Sometimes they, you know, you never know what happens, or they lowball you on the offer. And I was working for L3 Communications at the time. And so I was there over a year. There was a talk about, well, they may extend the contract, they may not. The contract was going over for bid. Then a friend of mine was living over here, a retired lawyer, and he calls me. He's like, hey, because when I was contracting overseas, I would come vacation here for a month at a time. I was getting a month off, so I'd come to Thailand like a month at a time, and I'd go to the Philippines and all that. So my friend's like, hey, dude, why don't you come over here and use your GI Bill? I'm like, you can use your GI Bill in Thailand? I was like, yeah, they got American institutions over here, and they got the institutions, you can use it. So I said, well, all right, why not? I said, well, I'll try it. So I applied at Webster University. And Webster was over here at the time. And I get accepted, and they accept me. So like I said, the contract was winding down anyway. Long story short, they ended up losing the contract anyway. A lot of the managers got lowballed. So I made the right decision. So I came over here to finish my degree, and pretty much I haven't left.
So 9 years in Thailand so far.
Yeah, and before COVID, I was traveling a lot more. I was going to the Philippines a lot. I'd go to Vietnam. Then when COVID hit, I sort of got a little lazy. And I didn't travel as much. But my first 6-7 years, I was constantly leaving the country, at least 4 times a year, traveling somewhere. Whether it's Cambodia, whether it's Vietnam, whether I was going somewhere.
And how long do you think you'll stay here in Thailand? Do you think you'll be living here until you die? Or?
Well, it's hard to say. You know, yeah, you could say yeah, but sometimes life throws curveballs. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, right now, look, is this a perfect place? No, but overall, it's pretty good. And judging by, you see all the more and more expats over here, it's a pretty good place. So therefore, I would say, yeah, I'm here right now. We even have some friends that are going to retire over here. So yeah, I'm here. Now, could it change? Yeah, you never know. 5 years from now, they can have a coup. You never know what can happen in a country. And the way the world's going, you just never know.
So speaking of retirement, when did you decide to leave the military?
When did I decide to what?
Leave the military.
2010.
2010.
Yeah, well, what happened was I was gonna have to get out anyway because, long story short of the whole ordeal, I had a twitch over the years, bad twitch in my hand, and my head would rock, and I had it for, beginning part of the Navy. It got worse, but I was still able to function, and I go to the doctor. They go, oh, it's no big deal. About my 19-year mark, it was 18 or 19 years, my division officer, he says, look, you did that rocking motion again. I was like, yeah, what do you want me to, I said, well, sir, what do you want me to do about it? He goes, no, nothing. He goes, go to the doctor. I said, well, I tried that many times. It doesn't do. He goes, I'll go with you. So he said, I'll go with you. I said, okay, well, if you're going to go, and all right, well, let's go. So what happened was we won. They referred me to a specialist. Long story short, I did a bunch of tests, and I got diagnosed with a spectrum autism, if you believe that or not. Yeah, that's.
So what was it like to find that out?
Well, funny. The whole thing's funny. I wasn't mad at all. People were like feeling sorry for me. I'm like, well, now I knew what the problem was. And I go, well, what's going to change? I've dealt with it anyway. So, So I did that. They said, okay, well, it's funny. So then they start sending me to all these doctors So then they sent me this doctor in the VA. 'Cause I had like 6 months before I had to get out. I wasn't going back to sea duty anymore. It wasn't because my knees were messed up. I had torn MCLs. Now with this, you can forget it. It's over. Take the L out of lover and it's over.
Right.
So I go there and the VA doctor is like, you know, you're gonna probably get out. How long you been in? With 2 years. I said, add another 2 on that. He goes, really? I says, really? I says, really? And he's like, it's funny when I went to TAPS class, that's a transition class when you get ready to retire. Transition assistance program. I went with another guy. We were retiring at the same time. Then the VA rep knew about my case. The rep, he goes, Joe, because I would see him. Look, in Nevada. Long story short, there's gambling everywhere, in the gas station, in the restaurants. I would see this guy in this place called the Depot. He's retired senior chief. He's like, hey, come see me. So when they came to do, he was involved in the TAPS class. He had us all bring our records. And he's like, you're gonna claim this, and this. You're gonna claim your autism. So they helped me do the paperwork to do the VA claim. That's how I learned about it.
Okay.
And then, long story short, I retired. I got my retirement, and I got a VA pension.
So you got out with what percentage?
I got out initially at like 80. It was like 80 or 90. Then they came back 6 months later or something, and oh, you got 100.
Oh, they just upped you that just like off of what?
Yep, pretty much.
So why did they increase you?
They said, oh, the autism, they increased it. But sometimes they increase it.
How did you feel about leaving the military?
Well, nothing. I think it was meant to be. It was time to go. Time to move on, and so.
What did you do to prepare yourself for civilian life? Like, what did you do to prepare?
To be honest with you, it was all I did. I was retiring with a few other guys. I did what they did. I just put in a bunch of resumes. I started networking. That's about it. What I tell people now, and is the economy is changing. Even since 2009, 2010, the world is changing incrementally faster. AI is emerging. We have all these different things emerging. I would, especially for the young people, the younger generation, get into coding. Get into a lot of these jobs you have now, the next 20 years are probably going to be gone. Probably going to be gone. Some kind of coding, some kind of, unless you're going to contract, and like a lot of the aviation guys, they stay in aviation. Me, I was very fortunate. I got a gig. My first post-civilian job was in Kingsville, Texas, and where I was a depot manager for T-45s. And it probably got it because no one wanted to go that deep in South Texas, but I didn't care. That's when the economy was real bad at the time. I figured, well, let me try my hand at it. So put in, learn how to write a resume, and obviously you got LinkedIn now. It's so much has changed now. And I would tell people getting out of the military, going in, get something with a trade, like something, or a mechanic, or if you want to be in aviation, a structural mechanic, or a electrician. But IT is not a bad field to get into now. But coding is the ticket, I think, because the way the future's going.
Okay, so your top 5 trades that you can get through the military are?
In my opinion, I think IT is one.
IT.
Now in aviation, there's a thing called an NDI tech, a non-destructive technician, where you check the structure of the aircraft, and you do a microscope exam of it. I think that pays big money. I think any electrician, I think a structural engineer, civil engineer, something along those lines. And again, like I said, I've been out of the workforce now, so it's the people I talk to. That's a lot of, especially if you want to live overseas. There's a lot of what you call digital nomads over here, and a lot of them are engineers working from their computer. I meet a lot. You'd be stunned at the amount of engineers I'm meeting. They get their engineering degree. I met a guy the other day. He was in the Marines 4 or 5 years. He got out, got his GI Bill. He got an engineering degree. Now he's over here on the computer from his house in Pattaya Beach, literally on the beach, making $160,000 a year, being a digital nomad. Remotely.
Was he doing contracting, or is that just?
He's, I just barely got to know him. He was, it is a contract. He was contracting. I know it's a U.S. based company. I don't remember the name of it. So and he's getting the tax breaks, but with being outside the country.
Right.
So I guess he has his system down good enough, whatever he's doing, where some days he can kick back, other days he gets the work done, whatever they need him to get done, and that's what they do.
Nice. So, landing your first contracting gig, how was that? Like, did you never work your way into it, or did you just apply?
Oh, my first contract? I just applied. Yeah, you just apply. Getting in a contracting gig could be tedious, though, and that's because you do security clearance and background check. Sometimes it can take 2 to 3 months to get hired in a typical contracting job. When I did it anyways. Because they'll hire you, but then they got to do a security check, a background check. Some jobs require a security clearance. If it doesn't require a security clearance, then maybe you can get hired sooner, but most of the ones I had always had a security clearance attached, so it took 2 to 3 months to get on.
And when you got out, you kept your secret clearance, or your? I
did at first, and every 10 years, I think, 7 or 10 years, you got to renew it. Something like that. Again, a lot has changed now since I've done it.
Okay, well, I got to ask you, man, what kind of difficulties did you face getting out of the military?
Shockingly, there was no difficulty for me.
Okay.
When they told me, hey, this is what's wrong with you, I was like, okay. And then I knew a year and a half out, so I started preparing. And I was luckily in a real good command it was an easy transition. I worked with a bunch of good people. So for me, the transition, and like I said, at the time I was getting out, 3, 4 others were doing the same thing. So we went through it together. Even the retirement party we had together. It was and like I said, 2 of the guys I'm still in touch with.
And you guys all retired together, went through TAPS together?
Yep, we went through TAPS together.
How helpful was TAPS for you?
It's very good. I'm going to tell you why TAPS is good, because one, you learn a lot of benefits that the government doesn't even tell you have. It's ran by mostly civilians, do it, or retired military. And it's about a 4 to 5 day class. Bring a notebook, you learn. Then especially the VA one, because the VA comes in, the VA rep, or the VSO comes in. I can't remember if he was a state rep or, I don't remember now, but yeah, it's very helpful. You learn stuff about benefits that you didn't know you had.
And what advice would you give someone preparing to leave the military with regards to like finding a job, getting out, disability?
What I would do is, when I first came in, there was a lot of peer pressure. You were afraid to go to medical. You were scared. You were peer pressured into. You better be bleeding or something seriously wrong with you to go to medical. They was discouraged when I first came in. As I got older, it started changing a little bit towards the end. What I would encourage people to do, if you something wrong with you, get it documented, especially in dealing with the VA. You have to have documentation is the key to any injury you attained when you were in the service. Document, document, document. Because once you get out, what's going to happen is, well, this happened when I was in the Army or the Navy. The VA will look, okay, well, where is it in your medical record? Where is it?
Right.
So if there's something you feel is wrong, get it documented. And yeah, and again, like I said, I'm out of the loop now. Like a lot of active duty guys I even serve with now are out, or getting out, or they're gone. But documentation is the key. Medical documentation.
What are the most high value claims you think someone could file?
Well, I think a common one with military vets is sleep apnea. A lot of your sleeping schedule gets messed up. Like I said, I don't know about the other branches, but in the Navy, you'd work sometimes 18, 20 hours a day.
Wow.
Sometimes you'd work out to sea or overseas, and it wouldn't happen all the time. I don't want people watching this and think, but on a ship or on a deployment, the average is 12 hours a day minimum. And sometimes you'll work more, even on land, especially in aviation. If they have a flight schedule the next day, you have a 5-bird go in the morning. That means 5 have to be ready to launch at 0800, and a jet's broke and it's not fixed. You're not going home till that thing is fixed or ready. Sometimes you'll stay till the morning if that's what it takes. So sleep apnea is one, mostly people with their knees and back. I notice there are others. PTSD, I didn't really see a lot of combat, so I'm not going to sit there. But PTSD has become common. And for the PTSD claim, let me just tell people this. A lot of people are using that. And what I'm going to say to you is this. Be careful, because if you really don't have PTSD and you apply for a job and you lie, and I'll tell you a quick story on that. I read a news article, what was it, a year ago, year or two. These guys were ex-Air Force pilots. So they were going through aviation administration, doing a background check. So they said on the application, do you have any PTSD? Or these guys said no. Guess what? They did a background check. Long story short, no, you guys claimed PTSD in the VA. They lost a job and they got in trouble for lying. So if you have disabilities and you think you're going to get a government job and lie about that, they will check it. Now with me, there's certain jobs I can't do anymore. I've had to accept it.
Like what?
I probably couldn't anymore. If I was a pilot, I probably couldn't be because of some of the issues I have, stuff like that. But if you're going to claim PTSD, remember, make sure. I'm not telling you not to, but make sure you really have it, because if they give it to you and you apply for a job and they ask a question, you better be honest, because the government will, especially if it's a background check, the government will check. If you're working for the government or any contracting gig, they will check. They will know. It's better to be honest. So if you're going to do a VA claim, make sure you're honest about your claims. What's wrong with you, what you have.
So being honest about your conditions is number one when it comes to filing claims, and making sure that you have a record in service of the conditions that you are claiming. Those are the two main things that you're
right. Yeah, you got to have documentation. Be honest about your claim. Don't lie about it. It will catch up with you.
Right.
make sure, the key is honesty, because believe me, the U.S. government will find out, especially if you're going to apply for a civil service job, a contract job. And like I said, there was another story. The woman claimed she was blind, and the VA was giving her money because she was blind. Come to find out, I don't know how this could happen. She had a license in 2 or 3 different states. She was driving around, and the VA found out about it, and she had to pay back $500,000 or go to jail. So the U.S. government will come after you. They will find out about it. So be careful. Don't think you can. Yeah, sometimes you can play the system, but sometimes you can't. I mean, and again, I'm not telling no one to do anything unethical, but just be careful. And especially the young veterans, I tell them, if you want to file, make sure you know what you're doing, and it's between you and the doctor. And just like I said, if you have something wrong with you, then file it.
So do you think it's important for veterans to support each other?
Yes, absolutely.
Why?
Because very few people understand what veterans go through, but other veterans. Even if you haven't been in combat. What was I gonna say? Even if you weren't in combat, you still go through stuff that no one else does. So veterans can only understand veterans. It's good to talk, maybe to get stuff off your chest. It's good to support each other, because there's a lot of guys here that do have PTSD issues that are misunderstood, and they need help and support.
I think it's really important for us to be there for each other as well.
Absolutely.
But if you could go back there to lead the military all over again, what would you do differently?
If I can go back through it again?
Yeah. What would you do?
You know what? I would probably choose a different rating, or MOS, as you guys would call it. I'd probably go into Intel. Looking back now, because my degree's in political science, I'd probably go into Intel. But again, you know, things are meant to be. You know, I'm not bitter or nothing. But having the knowledge I have now, probably something like that.
Well, my last question to you is, what's the most important life lesson that you can pass on to our audience?
The most important life lesson is don't give up. There's going to be stuff that comes. That's good. No one goes through life unscathed. Know how to course correct in life, and have good self-awareness about yourself. You know, none of us are perfect. We all have faults. Try to have good self-awareness, and sometimes stuff is going to pop up in life it's going to happen. Sometimes you may have to course correct, but don't panic. Society's not a race. Don't compare yourself to others, and just finish your race, whatever your journey is, as long as you finish it and do your best.
Right on, right on. Well, guys, that was the first official vet-to-vet interview with Van, and I appreciate you, Joe, for taking the time out to speak to me. And we'll catch you guys another time, man. Van out.
All right.